Zekulin is a terrorism expert at the University of Calgary in Canada. He joins us now for more analysis following the events today in Brussels. Thank you very much for your time. From what you're hearing and from what you know, do you think that these attacks are a retaliation for the arrest of Salah Abdeslam last week?
It's difficult to say. There is some suggestion that perhaps the Belgian intelligence overplayed their hand by leaking out how much this individual was cooperating and what he was saying. And in that case, individuals that were concerned that perhaps Mr. Abdeslam knew who they were or what they were planning, it may have accelerated them to act more quickly. But again, if you look beneath the surface here, if you're talking about multiple explosives, you're talking about belts, you're talking about weapons, this would require quite a bit of planning. It's very sophisticated. So again, I don't think it's anything necessarily that would be thrown together from scratch in the 3 or 4 days since the capture of Mr. Abdeslam. But at the same time, it's entirely possible that it was accelerated and the decision was made to do something in part as a retaliation, or afraid they were going to actually be captured themselves. So it accelerated their decision to act now as opposed to later.
What does today's events tell us about the challenges that Belgium's security services are facing? I mean, there's been a lot of focus on Brussels since the attacks in Paris in November, and yet attacks of this size and scale were still able to be carried out.
Well, it underlies how difficult it is to identify all of the individuals involved in this. And we recognize that Belgium in particular, per capita, has a very high number of individuals who are, intelligence agencies are concerned about. And because of this, it underscores the reality that you're not just concerned about individuals who may be committing violence or who will perpetrate the acts themselves. There appears to also be a very, very large support network or sympathizers that exist there. First and foremost, that we're able to hide Mr. Abdeslam for so long, but the reality is that these individuals require help. They require hiding, funneling money, perhaps driving them from place to place. And we're concerned right now that there are additional individuals still at large. So basically, it just underscores the larger problem that there are greater numbers of individuals than we possibly believed initially.
Does it point to the fact that perhaps the Belgian security services are being overwhelmed by the task that faces them?
Well, that's a possibility as well. We recognize that the numbers are very, very high. Logistically, it is very difficult to identify all these individuals, and even when you identify them, to follow them 24/7, to follow up on any individual they come into contact with or any phone call they make. You can understand how quickly this sort of snowballs. And yes, the resources required to keep tabs on individuals you're concerned about grows very quickly. And in this case, right now, Belgium is playing defense. They have a whole bunch of individuals they're concerned about, and they're scrambling to keep tabs on them.
Do you think there's enough cooperation across the continent of Europe between European nations? Could more be done there?
Well, we know that this is also a point of contention, and that when we see these types of incidents, there are increased calls, and in some cases, action is actually followed up where you have to increase the cooperation. So basically, intelligence agencies need to be able to coordinate and share information. There has to be allowances made in situations like this where perhaps countries have to sort of set aside their own hubris, so to speak, and ask for additional help or resources. That's the only way you're going to be able to deal with this, because it's very difficult for each country independently to try and keep tabs of who's there, who's coming through, who's a potential concern. And so cooperation and coordination is definitely one of the strategies that needs to improve.
Okay, Michael, thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for your insight as well.